Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline, and today I'm going to talk about some very new changes to the human rib cage. I saw this about a week ago. I was perusing the images and I saw this one, which was one I've never seen before. Now, it's just a stylized, but it's supposed to be some kind of insect or face or something. And this similar ones to this were popping up in quite a few places. So I was first a little confused what was making the eyes, and I thought about it for a while and I finally figured it out. Okay, so here's what the rib cage is currently doing. And what looked weird to me right away was this bit up here that looks like antennas and eyes and stuff. So obviously this is the collarbone here, but I didn't remember it being so crowded up here. I did not remember having such tiny little rib bones up here so choked in on the neck. And I thought about this and I realized what had changed. Originally, this section here, the manubrium, as they're calling it, only had one attachment to it, and that attachment was these collarbones. And they came out the side. They would come out and attach here on the side. All the ribs were down here on this middle section. But now a set of ribs has jumped up to here. So the manubrium is now holding together two different things, both the collarbone and the first set of ribs. These ribs now are much smaller and they choke around the neck quite a bit. What caused me to look at this is that I was feeling for the last 3 weeks or so quite a bit of pain up in here. I was starting to worry that there was something actually truly wrong with me. I was thinking about going to the hospital, but then it's passed. I feel fine now, finally. So I looked at these images last week and I saw that there was indeed something going on here. And as Mandela Effect often says, if you feel pain somewhere and it's suspicious, look and see if there's any anatomy changes there. So for me, there has. So these ribs here used to attach down here, all the way down, and they were not tight like this. This will give you, this image shows it so you can really understand what's going on with those ribs. But let's look again here. So it's really tight in here now, and they're saying that this particular set of ribs are flat now, instead of going more. All the ribs kind of flattened out for me a while back. I've been talking about that. They used to be round, and then they turned into linguinis. But these ones here, the linguinis are more like this, and this one, the linguinis are like that now. Now, I talked a little while back about the changes in the collarbone attachments here, where now this collarbone attaches to the back area, and there also are two little connections here that have come forward from the back, and it's this one and this one where the collarbone attaches. So first there was that change, and now the change here, you can see the collarbone is kind of pushed up on top of this manubrium. Now for me, it kind of hooked around and attached right in here. But now the ribs attach there, and so these collarbones are sort of propped up on top of the manubrium. That does not look like a really stable position for me. It looks like if you got banged here, this would just pop in right away. I suspect that we'll get more changes slowly to sort that mess out. But for now, it's working, and I feel decent again. Now here's another image I found when I was looking through this. The blue shows cartilage, and the yellowish brown shows bone. One thing that's interesting here that's definitely changed is the cartilage level of this top rib set here now is actually longer than the one below it. So before they would get the rib, the cartilage would get smaller and smaller as we went up, but now there's a change in that pattern, a sudden change, because now the cartilage is longer here. Also, there is this jugular notch in the manubrium. Let's see if you can see it better here. There's a little notch right here, and they're calling it the jugular notch. I'm not exactly sure when that changed, but it used to be the manubrium was straight across at the top. So now they've got that little notch. Another thing that we have also up here is the clavicular notch on the side here. And I think that that might be somewhere in here. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but we did not have a clavicular notch, I don't think, in there before. I think that it just came out the side over here. So that's another change. Another thing I noticed about this is that this xiphoid process that used to be that little end tip of the sternum here used to be bone, and now they're calling it cartilage that later ossifies to bone. So that's a change for me. It was just bone before. Now it starts as cartilage, and it's usually depicted as cartilage. Another change that's been working for a while now is originally when I saw the rib cage with the sternum in the front, all of these ribs came around and attached via cartilage to the centerpiece here. And then over time, these were pointing down and spreading down more and more, and instead of attaching directly to the center, they would attach, the cartilages would attach to themselves, and then one or two strands or various numbers of strands would come up here and sort of cluster on the bottom. And I've noticed now that they have a word for these ribs. They're called false ribs. So true ribs attach directly with cartilage, and all the ones that don't directly attach with cartilage, which looks like it's rib 8 through 12, are called false ribs. And then they're also calling floating ribs both the false ribs and this rib here that has no cartilage attachment. So there's two floating ribs, this one 11 and 12, and 8 through 12 are called false ribs. So that's a bit of a difference. I have not heard of this false ribs. I had heard of the floating ribs, but the false ribs are somewhere rather new. I'm not sure exactly when that came about. Anyway, lots of changes going on here. If some of you have been feeling some pressure up here, maybe some pain, I actually had a really hard time making this shift, and I suspect that when there is an anatomy shift where something suddenly has to jump instead of morphing slowly, it might be harder. Just a guess, but still figuring that out. So false rib, another term for floating rib. So I've not heard of it though. So anyways, that's what's the latest going on here in the collarbone and rib department. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.